I never thought I'd be the kind of mother who'd sell her own house out of spite. But life has a way of twisting your heart until you don't recognize yourself. My name is Evelyn Carter, and I'm 52 years old, standing at the edge of a decision that will either save me or damn me. My daughter, Claire, called me a useless mother 3 times, each word a knife carving deeper into my soul. The first time was a whisper, the second a scream, and the third was a calculated blow, delivered with a smile that said she meant every syllable. So, I sold the house she thought was hers, the one I'd poured my life into, the one she assumed she'd inherit without question. This is my story, raw and unfiltered, of how I clawed my way back from betrayal to find something resembling redemption. It started 2 years ago, in the summer of 2023, when the air in our Connecticut home felt heavier than usual. The house on Maplewood Lane was a 2-story colonial, with creaky hardwood floors and a wraparound porch that groaned under the weight of too many memories. I'd raised Claire and her younger brother, Ethan, there, pouring every ounce of myself into their world. My husband, Tom, died 10 years ago in a car accident, leaving me to stitch our family together alone. I worked 2 jobs days at a local bookstore, nights cleaning off a cess to keep the mortgage paid and food on the table. Claire was my pride, my fierce, brilliant girl who graduated college with honors and landed a marketing job in Boston. Ethan, quieter, more sensitive, was still finding his way, studying art at a community college nearby. I thought we were solid, a family forged in grief but bound by love. I was wrong. Claire came home that summer, her sleek black SUV pulling into the driveway like she owned the place. She was 28, polished in a way I'd never been, with her tailored blazers and sharp bob haircut. She hugged me briefly, her perfume stinging my nose, and dropped her bags in the foyer. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her tone clipped, like I was an employee she was about to fire. I followed her to the kitchen, my heart thudding. She sat at the table, scrolling through her phone, and didn't look up as she spoke. "This house is falling apart. The roof leaks, the plumbing's shot, and it's in the middle of nowhere. You should sell it and move to a condo. Something manageable for someone like you." Her words hit like a slap. Someone like me. A widow. A mother who'd sacrificed everything, reduced to a problem to be managed. I tried to laugh it off, pouring her coffee from the pot I'd brewed just for her. "Claire, this is our home. Your dad and I bought it when we were pregnant with you. It's not perfect, but it's ours." She sighed, finally meeting my eyes. And there it was, the first cut. "Mom, you're useless at keeping this place up. It's embarrassing." Useless. The word hung in the air, sharp and cold. I froze, the coffee pot trembling in my hands. She didn't apologize, didn't soften. She just sipped her coffee and changed the subject, talking about her promotion, her life, her plans. I stood there, feeling like a ghost in my own kitchen, wondering when my daughter had become a stranger. Over the next few weeks, Claire's visits grew more frequent, each one laced with a subtle venom I couldn't ignore. She'd point out every flaw in the house: the chipped paint, the creaky stairs, the outdated appliances, like she was building a case. Ethan noticed it too, his quiet brown eyes watching her warily. "She's different, Mom," he whispered one night as we washed dishes together. "She's not the Claire I remember." I nodded, my throat tight. I wanted to believe it was stress, her high-pressure job. But deep down, I knew something darker was brewing. The second time she called me useless was worse. It was fall, the leaves outside turning crimson, and Claire came home unannounced, her SUV screeching into the driveway. I was in the living room, sorting through old photos of Tom, trying to hold on to the pieces of him that still lived in this house. She stormed in, her face flushed with anger. "Mom, I talked to a realtor. This house could sell for $500,000, maybe more. You're sitting on a gold mine and doing nothing with it." Her voice was a blade, slicing through the quiet. I stood, clutching a photo of Tom holding baby Claire, my hands shaking. "Claire, this is our home. It's not just money. It's where you grew up, where Ethan's still growing up." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "God, Mom, you're so useless. You're clinging to a rotting house like it's your identity. Let it go." That word agonistless echoed in my chest, a wound that wouldn't close. I didn't respond. I couldn't. She left as quickly as she'd come, her tires spitting gravel as she drove away. Ethan found me later, sitting on the porch, staring at the stars. He didn't say anything, just sat beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. At 20, he was still my boy, lanky and soft-spoken, with a sketchbook always tucked under his arm. "She doesn't mean it, Mom," he said finally. But I wasn't so sure. Claire's words weren't just cruel, they were deliberate. Like she was testing how far she could push me. I didn't know then that she was planning something far worse. Something that would shatter the fragile trust we had left. By winter, the house felt like a battlefield. Claire's visits were less frequent, but her calls were relentless. Each one a lecture about selling the house, moving on, being practical. She'd started talking about her inheritance, as if I were already dead, as if the house was hers to claim. I tried to reach her, to remind her of the girl who'd once run through these halls, laughing, but she shut me down every time. Ethan, meanwhile, was struggling. His grades slipped, and he stopped drawing, his sketchbook gathering dust. I caught him crying one night, his face buried in his hands. "She's going to take everything, isn't she?" he whispered. I hugged him, promising I'd protect our home, our family. But doubt gnawed at me. What was Claire planning? And why did she hate me so much? The third time she called me useless was the breaking point. It was early 2024, a snowy January evening, and Claire arrived with a man I didn't know. He was older, slick in a tailored suit, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mom, this is Derek," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "He's a developer. He's got an offer for the house." My stomach dropped. I invited them in, my hands clammy, and we sat in the living room, the same room where Claire had taken her first steps. Derek spread blueprints across the coffee table, talking about condos and profit margins. I barely heard him. My eyes were on Claire, who leaned back in her chair, smiling like she'd already won. "Mom, this is your chance to do something smart for once," she said. "Stop being a useless mother and think about our future." There it was, the third strike, delivered with a smirk that told me she'd been planning this for months. I stood, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Get out." Claire blinked, her smile faltering. Derek looked uncomfortable, gathering his papers. Mom, don't be dramatic, Claire said, but I cut her off. Get out of my house. Now. They left, Claire's eyes flashing with anger, and I sank to the floor, the weight of her words crushing me. Useless. 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 The word looped in my mind, each repetition fueling a fire I didn't know I had. That night, I made a decision. If Claire thought she could take my home, my life, my heart, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. I spent the next week in a haze, my mind churning with Claire's words and that smug smile she'd worn as she sat across from me with Derek. The house, my sanctuary, felt tainted now, its walls echoing with her betrayal. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every creak of the floorboards reminded me of her footsteps, her accusations. Ethan noticed my silence, his worried glances following me as I moved through the house like a ghost. I wanted to tell him everything, to pour out the pain, but I couldn't burden him with it. Not yet. Instead, I started digging, determined to understand why Claire was so hell-bent on selling the house. I began with her phone calls, the ones she'd made in the guest room during her visits. I'd overheard fragments talk of deals and investments, but I dismissed them as her usual work chatter. Now, I wasn't so sure. I checked her old room, untouched since her last stay, and found a notebook tucked under the mattress. It was filled with numbers, addresses, and names, including Derek's, with Maplewood Lane circled in red ink. My heart raced as I pieced it together. Claire wasn't just pushing me to sell, she was working with Derek to flip the house for profit, likely cutting me out entirely. The betrayal cut deeper than her words ever could. My own daughter, plotting against me, using the home I'd built for her as a pawn in her game. I confronted Ethan the next morning, showing him the notebook. His face paled as he read it, his fingers tracing the red ink. She's been talking to developers for months, he whispered. I heard her once, on the phone, saying the house was prime real estate. I thought she was just dreaming big. His voice broke, and I pulled him into a hug, feeling his trembling frame against mine. We'll figure this out, I promised, though I had no idea how. All I knew was that I couldn't let Claire win out like this. The house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the last piece of Tom, of our family, of me. If she wanted a fight, I'd give her one. I started small, gathering information like a detective in my own life. I called the realtor Claire had mentioned, posing as a curious neighbor, and learned that Derek's company had been eyeing our street for a condo development. The numbers Claire had scribbled matched their projected profits. My blood boiled. She wasn't just greedy, she was calculating, using her knowledge of my vulnerabilities to manipulate me. I remembered the girl who'd once cried in my arms when Tom died, promising we'd always have each other. Where had she gone? Had I failed her so badly that she'd turned into this? I didn't tell Ethan everything, but I needed an ally. So I confided in my oldest friend, Linda, who lived 2 streets over. Over coffee in her cozy kitchen, I spilled the story, Claire's words, the notebook, Derek's blueprints. Linda's eyes narrowed, her usual warmth replaced by a steely resolve. Ev, she's playing dirty. You need to play smarter. She suggested I get a lawyer, someone to protect the house and my rights. I hesitated. Legal battles were expensive, and I'd spent my savings keeping the house afloat. But Linda was insistent. You're not just fighting for the house, she said. You're fighting for yourself. For Ethan. For what's right. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel, confirmed my worst fears. Claire could challenge my ownership if she claimed I was unfit to manage the property, especially since she'd been paying for some repairs during her visits. It was a long shot, Rachel said, but not impossible. She's building a case against you, Evelyn. Rachel warned. You need to act fast. Act fast. The words echoed Claire's accusations. But this time, they lit a spark in me. I wasn't useless. I was a mother who'd survived loss, raised 2 kids alone, and kept this house standing through sheer will. If Claire thought she could break me, she was about to meet the woman I'd become. I started by securing the house legally. Rachel helped me update the deed, ensuring it was solely in my name, with Ethan as the beneficiary if anything happened to me. It felt like a betrayal of Claire, but she'd betrayed me first. Next, I looked into selling the house not to Derek, but to someone who'd value it. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. But I needed options. Rachel connected me with a local realtor, Mark, who was honest and kind. Nothing like Derek's slick promises. Mark assessed the house, noting its charm despite the wear, and estimated it could fetch $550, $000 in the current market. The number stunned me. Claire wasn't wrong about its value, but she was wrong about me. I didn't tell Claire any of this. Instead, I let her think I was crumbling, playing the part of the useless mother she'd labeled me. When she called, I kept my voice soft, defeated, agreeing to meet Derek again. She took the bait, arriving the next week with him in tow, her smile triumphant. I invited them in, served tea, and listened as Derek pitched his condo plan again. Claire chimed in, her voice dripping with false concern. Mom, this is for your own good. You can't keep up with this place. I nodded, my face a mask of resignation. While inside, I was plotting. If she wanted the house, she'd have to fight for it, but not in the way she expected. That night, after they left, I sat with Ethan and laid out my plan. I'd sell the house, but not to Derek. I'd find a buyer who'd keep it as a home, not tear it down for profit. The money would go into a trust for Ethan's future, with enough for me to start over somewhere new. Ethan's eyes widened. You're really going to do it? He asked. I nodded, my heart heavy but resolute. This house is us, Ethan, but it's not all we are. Claire thinks she can take it from me. I'm going to show her she's wrong. The next step was finding the right buyer. Mark brought a young couple, Sarah and James, to see the house. They were newlyweds, expecting their first child, and they fell in love with the porch, the big windows, the history etched into every corner. This is where we want to raise our family, Sarah said, her hand resting on her belly. I felt a pang, remembering when I'd stood in that same spot, pregnant with Claire, dreaming of our future. I knew they were the ones. We agreed on $540, $000, a fair price, and I signed the papers with a trembling hand. The house was no longer mine, but it would live on, loved by someone new. Claire found out a week later, when the sale was finalized. She called me, her voice shaking with rage. You sold the house. Without telling me. I let her rant, her words a storm I'd weathered before. When she paused, I spoke, my voice calm but firm. You called me useless. Claire. 3 times. You thought you could take my home, my life, and walk away with the profits. This was my decision, not yours. She hung up, and for the first time in months, I felt free. The house was gone, but I'd taken back my power. I wasn't useless. I was Evelyn Carter, and I was done letting my daughter define me. The aftermath of the sale was quieter than I expected, like the calm after a hurricane. The house was empty now, its rooms stripped of furniture, its walls bare of the photos that had once told our story. Ethan and I moved into a small apartment in town, a temporary space while I figured out our next steps. The trust for Ethan was set, and I'd kept enough from the sale to give us breathing room. But the victory felt hollow. Claire's silence was deafening, and I couldn't shake the image of her face, twisted with anger, when she'd learned I'd sold the house. I'd won, but at what cost? My daughter was gone, not just from the house, but from my life, and the weight of that loss pressed against my chest. Ethan tried to keep things light, filling the apartment with his sketches, pinning them to the walls like a rebellion against the starkness. He'd started drawing again, his pencil capturing the world in ways that made my heart ache with pride. But I saw the worry in his eyes, the way he'd glance at me when he thought I wasn't looking. "She'll come around, Mom," he said one evening as we ate takeout on the couch. I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it. Claire's betrayal wasn't just about the house, it was about us, about the bond one thought we'd shared. I'd raised her to be strong, independent, but somewhere along the way, she'd turned that strength against me. I tried to move forward, focusing on the new life I was building. Linda was a lifeline, inviting us over for dinners, filling the silence with her warmth. Rachel, my lawyer, checked in regularly, ensuring the trust was secure and Claire couldn't challenge the sale. But at night, when the apartment was quiet, my mind replayed every moment with Claire, the good and the bad. I remembered her as a child, her tiny hand in mine as we planted flowers in the backyard. I remembered her teenage years, when she'd sneak out to meet friends, thinking I didn't know. I remembered the day she graduated college, her smile brighter than the sun. Where had I gone wrong? Had I been too soft, too strict, too absent? Or was this just who Claire had become? A month after the sale, I got a letter from Claire. It was hand-delivered, slipped under the apartment door while I was at work. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting another attack. Instead, it was short, almost formal. "Mom, I need to see you. Please. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown. Room 312. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. No apology. No explanation. Just a demand." I sat on the couch, the letter crumpled in my fist, torn between anger and hope. Ethan read it over my shoulder, his jaw tight. "You don't have to go," he said. But I did. I needed to know what she wanted, needed to see if there was anything left of the daughter I loved. The Marriott was sleek, all glass and steel, a world away from our old house. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, my heart pounding. When Claire opened the door, I barely recognized her. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed, like she hadn't slept in days. She gestured for me to sit, and I did, perching on the edge of a stiff hotel chair. "Why am I here, Claire?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She paced, her hands twisting together, and for a moment, I saw the little girl who'd come to me with scraped knees, begging for comfort. Then she spoke, and the illusion shattered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice low. "Derek. He convinced me the house was a gold mine. He said we could split the profits, that it would set me up for life. I thought you'd agree, that you'd see it was the smart thing to do." I stared at her, my anger flaring. "You called me useless, Claire. 3 times. You plotted behind my back. And now you're saying it was Derek's idea." She flinched, but didn't deny it. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I got caught up in Itha's promises. The money. I thought I was doing it for us." Her words were a plea, but they felt hollow. I wanted to believe her, but the hurt was too raw. I stood, my hands trembling. "You didn't do this for us. You did it for you. You thought you could bully me out of my home, out of my life. And now you're sorry because it backfired." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't stop. "I sold the house, Claire, because I had to protect what was left of our family. Ethan deserved better. I deserved better." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "I need time," I said, and left before she could respond. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into my own heart, torn between love and rage. Back at the apartment, I told Ethan everything. He listened, his face a mix of anger and sadness. "She's my sister," he said finally, "but she hurt you. I don't know if I can forgive her." I hugged him, feeling the weight of his words. Claire was his sister, my daughter, but she'd crossed a line I wasn't sure we could come back from. Still, her letter, her tears, lingered in my mind. Was there a chance for redemption? For her? For us? I didn't know, but I wasn't ready to give up completely. Not yet. The next few weeks were a blur of routine work. Dinners with Ethan, visits with Linda. I tried to focus on the present, on the small joys of our new life. But Claire's shadow hung over me. I kept her letter on my nightstand, rereading it until the words blurred. I wanted to hate her, to erase her from my heart. But she was still my daughter. I started writing her a letter of my own, pouring out everything: the pain, the love, the hope I still clung to. I didn't send it. Not yet. But it felt like a step toward something. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe closure. One evening, as I was sealing the letter, Ethan came home with news. He'd run into Derek at a coffee shop, and the man had been drunk, ranting about Claire. He said she backed out of their deal. Ethan told me, his eyes wide. Said she's been trying to make things right with you. My heart skipped. Was Claire's remorse real? Or was it another manipulation? I didn't know, but I felt a spark of hope. Fragile, but alive. I decided to meet her again, this time on my terms. I called her, setting a time in Placia Park near the apartment. Neutral ground. Whatever happened next, I'd face it as the woman I'd become, not the useless mother she tried to make me believe I was. The park was quiet when I arrived, the late spring air carrying the scent of blooming lilacs. I chose a bench near the pond, where ducks glided in lazy circles, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. Claire was late, and for a moment, I thought she wouldn't show. Then I saw her, walking down the path, her steps hesitant, her usual confidence replaced by something raw, almost vulnerable. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back, And I couldn't help but see the girl she'd been me, Claire, before ambition and greed had twisted her. I stood as she approached, my hands clasped tightly to keep them from shaking. This was it. The moment that could either mend us or break us for good. She sat beside me, her eyes fixed on the pond. "I didn't think you'd come," she said softly. I didn't respond, waiting for her to fill the silence. She took a deep breath, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. "I've been a terrible daughter," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I got caught up in Derek's world, his promises, his vision of what I could be. He made it sound so easy, like selling the house was just a step towards something bigger. I didn't see how it would hurt you, how it would hurt us." Her words were earnest, but I'd heard her lies before. I stayed silent, letting her continue. "I called you useless because I was angry," she said, her voice cracking. "Not at you, but at myself. I wanted to prove I could be more than just your daughter, more than the girl from Maplewood Lane. I thought if I could control the house, control the future, I'd finally be someone." She looked at me then, her eyes glistening with tears. "I was wrong, Mom. I see that now. I've lost you, Ethan, everything that matters. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry." Her words hit me like a wave, stirring up emotions I'd buried deep: love, pain, hope, distrust. I took a moment, staring at the ducks, their calm a stark contrast to the chaos inside me. "Claire," I said finally, my voice steady, "you didn't just hurt me. You tried to take everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed for. You called me useless 3 times, each one a choice. I sold the house to protect myself, to protect Ethan. But I didn't do it to punish you. I did it to survive." She flinched, but I kept going. "I want to believe you're sorry, but words aren't enough. You've got to show me. You've got to show Ethan. We're your family, not a business deal." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know," she whispered. "I've cut ties with Derek. I told him I'm done, that I won't be part of his plans anymore. I'm trying to fix this, Mom. I don't know how, but I'm trying." I wanted to reach for her, to pull her into my arms like I had when she was small, but I held back. Trust was a fragile thing, and she'd shattered it. "Start with Ethan," I said. "He's hurting too. Show him you mean it." She nodded again, wiping her eyes. And for the first time, I saw a glimmer of the daughter I'd raised, flawed, but human. We sat in silence for a while, the pond reflecting the fading light. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. But I felt the first crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. When we parted, I promised to talk again, to keep the door open. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Back at the apartment, I told Ethan about the meeting, watching his face for a reaction. He was quiet, his fingers tracing the edge of his sketchbook. "Do you think she's telling the truth?" he asked. I sighed, sitting beside him. "I don't know, Ethan, but I want to hope she is. For her sake. For ours." He nodded, leaning against me, and I felt the weight of our little family, bruised but still holding together. The next few weeks were a slow dance of healing. Claire started calling Ethan. Small gestures at first, an apology, a text about a memory from their childhood. He was wary, but he responded, and I saw the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. I met Claire again, this time for coffee at a small cafe. She talked about her job, how she'd stepped back from the high-stakes deals that had consumed her. She was trying, she said, to find herself again. I listened, asking questions, searching for the truth in her words. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Meanwhile, I was finding my own footing. The apartment, once a temporary refuge, was starting to feel like home. I hung Ethan's sketches on the walls, bought a few plants, made it ours. Linda helped, bringing over homemade casseroles and stories that made me laugh until my sides hurt. Rachel checked in, confirming the trust was secure and Claire had no legal grounds to challenge anything. I started working more hours at the bookstore, rediscovering the joy of losing myself in stories. I even joined a book club, something I'd never had time for before. Slowly, I was rebuilding, not just for Ethan, but for me. One evening, Claire showed up unannounced, a nervous smile on her face. She held a small box, wrapped in plain paper. I found this in my apartment, she said, handing it to me. Inside was a photo album, one I'd made when she and Ethan were kids, filled with pictures of our family. Tom, Claire, Ethan, me, laughing in the backyard, on the porch, in the house that was no longer ours. I thought you should have it, she said. I flipped through it, my throat tight, and for a moment, we were just a mother and daughter, sharing a memory. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a step toward something better. As spring turned to summer, I felt a shift. Claire was trying, and so was I. Ethan started sketching again, his drawings brighter, less haunted. We were a family, fractured but not broken, learning to trust again. I didn't know if we'd ever be what we were, but I was starting to believe we could be something new. The house was gone, but we were still here, and maybe that was enough. Summer brought a tentative warmth to our lives, not just in the weather, but in the slow mending of our family. Claire's efforts to rebuild trust were small, but consistent. She'd call Ethan to check in, send me texts about her day, even show up with coffee or a book she thought I'd like. I watched her closely, searching for signs of the old Claire, the one who'd hurt me so deeply. But I also saw glimpses of the daughter I'd raised, the one who'd once made me laugh until I cried. It was confusing, this dance between hope and caution, but I let myself lean into it, just a little. Ethan was more guarded, his trust harder to earn. But even he softened when Claire brought him a set of charcoal pencils, remembering his love for sketching. I started writing in a journal, something I hadn't done since Tom died. It was a way to process the whirlwind of emotions: anger at Claire, grief for the house, pride in Ethan, and a growing sense of my own strength. I wrote about the day I sold the house, how it felt to sign those papers, to let go of the place that had held so much of my heart. I wrote about Claire's betrayal, how her words had cut me to the bone, and how I was trying to forgive her, not for her sake, but for mine. The act of writing was like untangling a knot, each word loosening the pain I'd carried for so long. One afternoon, Claire asked to meet at the old house. It was a bold request, and I hesitated. The memories of that place still raw. But she insisted, saying it was important. So I agreed. When I arrived, the house looked different. Sarah and James had painted the exterior a soft blue, added flower boxes to the porch. It was theirs now, alive with their dreams, and I felt a strange mix of loss and relief. Claire was waiting on the porch, her hands in her pockets, her expression nervous. I needed to see it, she said as I approached. I needed to understand what I almost took from you. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't realize how much this place meant until it was gone. I stood beside her, looking at the house. Its new colors a reminder that life moves on. It wasn't just the house, Claire, I said. It was what it represented: your dad, our family, everything I fought for. You tried to take that from me. She nodded, tears spilling over. I know. I was selfish, caught up in my own head. I thought I was building a future, but I was tearing ours apart. Her honesty disarmed me, and for the first time, I believed she meant it. We sat on the porch steps, talking for hours about Tom, about her childhood, about the pressures she'd felt to succeed. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a bridge, fragile but real. Ethan joined us later, his sketchbook under his arm. He'd been reluctant, but I convinced him to come, to see if Claire's change was genuine. She apologized to him too, her voice breaking as she admitted how she'd ignored his pain. You're my little brother, she said. I should have protected you, not hurt you. Ethan didn't say much, but he listened. And when we left, he hugged Hera, small, hesitant hug, but a hug nonetheless. In the car, he was quiet, but his fingers tapped a rhythm on his sketchbook, a sign he was processing, maybe even healing. Back at the apartment, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a layer of grief. Claire's remorse was real. I was sure of it now, but forgiveness was still a work in progress. I started inviting her over. Small steps like dinners or movie nights. She'd bring dessert, laugh at Ethan's bad jokes, and for moments, it felt like we were a family again. But there were still shadows moments when I'd catch myself bracing for another betrayal, when Ethan's eyes would flicker with doubt. We were rebuilding, but the cracks were still there, and I wondered if they'd ever fully heal. One evening, Claire brought up Derek. He's out of my life, she said, stirring her tea. I found out he was using me, promising me a cut of the profits while planning to keep most of it for himself. Her voice was bitter, but there was a strength in it, a clarity I hadn't heard before. I was so stupid, Mom. I thought he saw something in me, but he just saw dollar signs. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. You're not stupid, Claire. You made a mistake. We all do. What matters is what you do now. She smiled, a real smile, and I felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. I started dreaming again, not just of survival, but of a future. I enrolled in a community college course, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. It was just one class, literature, but it felt like a reclaiming of myself. Ethan noticed, teasing me about becoming a scholar, but I saw the pride in his eyes. He was thriving too, his sketches turning into full paintings, one of which was accepted into a local gallery show. Claire came to the opening, cheering louder than anyone. And for a moment, I saw the family we could be, not perfect, but whole. As summer faded into fall, I realized I was no longer the useless mother Claire had called me. I was Evelyn Carter, a woman who'd faced betrayal, fought for her family, and come out stronger. The house was gone, but it had served its purpose, sheltering us through the worst and giving us a foundation to rebuild. Claire was still earning our trust, but she was trying, And so were we. Redemption wasn't a moment, it was a journey. And we were on it together. One step at a time. Fall painted our small town in hues of amber and crimson. A backdrop to the tentative steps we were taking as a family. Claire's presence became more regular. Her visits to the apartment no longer feeling like an intrusion, but a cautious rebuilding of what we'd lost. She'd bring small gifts, a scarf for me, a new sketch pad for Ethan, and her apologies. Once stilted, grew more natural, woven into conversations about her job, her regrets, her hopes. Ethan was warming to her, though his trust came in measured doses. Each smile a hard-won victory. I watched them together, laughing over old family stories, and felt a flicker of the life we'd had before Claire's betrayal tore it apart. I was changing too, finding pieces of myself I'd buried under years of sacrifice. The literature class I'd enrolled in became a lifeline, a place where I could lose myself in words and ideas. My professor, a kind woman named Dr. Ellis, encouraged me to write essays. And to my surprise, I was good at it. My first paper, about grief in literature, earned praise that left me blushing but proud. Ethan teased me, calling me Professor Mom. But I saw the way he looked at me, like I was someone new, someone stronger. I started to believe it myself. Claire noticed the change too. One evening, as we sat in the apartment sipping tea, she watched me grading my own homework, a smile tugging at her lips. "You're different, Mom," she said. "You seem alive." Her words caught me off guard. And for a moment, I saw the old Claire, the one who'd always known how to read me. "I'm trying to be," I admitted. "Losing the house, losing you for a while, it made me realize I'd stopped living for myself." She looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "I did that to you," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry." I reached for her hand, the first time I'd initiated contact in months. "You hurt me, Claire. But you didn't break me. I'm here. And so are you. That's what matters." Ethan's art show was a turning point. The gallery was small, tucked in a corner of town, but it buzzed with energy as people admired his paintings. Claire was there, standing proudly beside him, pointing out details in his work to strangers. I watched from a distance, my heart swelling. When Ethan caught my eye, he grinned, a real, unguarded grin, and I knew we were healing. After the show, Claire pulled me aside, her expression serious. "I want to make this right," she said. "Not just with words, but with something real. I've been saving up. I want to help Ethan with his art school tuition, if he'll let me." I stared at her, searching for any hint of manipulation. But her eyes were clear, earnest. "Talk to him," I said. "It's his decision." Ethan was hesitant when Claire approached him, but he listened. They sat in the corner of the gallery, their heads bent together, and I saw him nod, his face softening. Later, he told me she'd offered to cover half his tuition for the next semester. No strings attached. "She's trying, Mom," he said, his voice tinged with hope. "I want to believe her." I hugged him, my heart torn between pride and caution. Claire's gesture was a step, but trust was a long road, and we were still walking it. I started inviting Claire to my book club, a small act that felt monumental. She was nervous at first, but the group welcomed her, and soon she was debating plots and characters with a passion I hadn't seen in years. It reminded me of the teenager who'd devour novels in her room, sneaking them under her covers with a flashlight. One night, after the meeting, she lingered, helping me clean up. "I missed this," she said, stacking cups in the sink. "Being part of something with you." I smiled, my throat tight. "Me too, Claire." It wasn't forgiveness. Not fully, but it was close. The past still haunted us, though. I'd catch Ethan staring at the photo album Claire had given me, his fingers tracing pictures of the old house. I felt it too, the ache of what we'd lost. Not just the house, but the innocence of our family. Claire sensed it. And one day, she suggested we visit the house again. Not to mourn, but to say goodbye properly. I agreed. And we drove there together, the three of us silent in the car. Sarah and James welcomed us, showing us the changes they'd made a nursery for their baby, a garden in the backyard. It was bittersweet, seeing our home transformed. But it felt right, like the house was living a new life, just as we were. As we stood on the porch, Claire took my hand, her grip tight. "I'll never stop trying to make this right," she said. Ethan joined us, his arm around my shoulders. And for a moment, we were whole again. I didn't know if we'd ever fully heal, but I knew we were trying. And that was enough for now. The drive back was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence, filled with the possibility of a future we could build together. Winter settled over our town, blanketing it in snow and a quiet that felt both peaceful and heavy. The apartment was our haven now, filled with Ethan's art, my books, and the small rituals we'd built: Sunday breakfasts, late-night talks, the hum of a new life. Claire was a regular presence, her visits no longer tentative but woven into our routine. She'd bring groceries, insisting on cooking, and though her dishes were hit or miss, the effort warmed me. Ethan was opening up, sharing his sketches with her, even asking her opinion. It wasn't the family we'd been, but it was something new, something we were shaping together. My journal became a mirror, reflecting the woman I was becoming. I wrote about Claire's return, how her apologies had shifted from words to actions. I wrote about Ethan's growth, how his art was blossoming, carrying him toward a future I'd always dreamed for him. I wrote about myself, the Evelyn who was no longer defined by loss or betrayal, but by resilience. My literature class had sparked something in me, a hunger to learn, to grow. I signed up for another course, this one on creative writing, and started drafting stories, pouring my pain and hope into words. Dr. Ellis read one, a piece about a mother and daughter torn apart by greed, and called it powerful. I cried when she said it, not out of sadness but pride. Claire's redemption was a slow burn, but it was real. She'd taken a new job, one with less pressure, less room for the ambition that had consumed her. She talked about it openly, admitting how her old life had warped her priorities. I thought success was money, status, she said one night over dinner. But it was empty. I lost you, Ethan, myself. Her honesty was raw, and Ethan reached for her hand, a gesture that made my heart ache. We're here now, he said, and I saw the boy who'd always believed in his sister, even when she'd hurt him most. But the past wasn't done with us. One icy morning, I got a call from Rachel, my lawyer. Derek had filed a lawsuit, claiming Claire had breached a contract by backing out of their deal. He was suing for damages, naming me as a co-defendant, arguing I'd interfered by selling the house. My stomach dropped. I'd thought Derek was gone. A footnote in our story. But here he was, clawing his way back. I called Claire, my voice shaking, and she came over immediately, her face pale. I didn't know, she said. He never mentioned a contract. I swear. Mom, I thought it was over. I believed her, but the fear in her eyes mirrored my own. This wasn't just about money, it was about control, about punishing us for defying him. Rachel was calm, methodical, laying out our options. The lawsuit was flimsy, she said, built on vague emails and verbal agreements. But it would cost time and money to fight. Claire offered to pay for the legal fees, dipping into her savings. And though I hesitated, I let her. It was her mess, part of her redemption, and she needed to own it. Ethan was furious, his quiet demeanor replaced by a fire I rarely saw. He's a snake, he said, pacing the apartment. He used Claire, and now he's coming for us. I pulled him into a hug, promising we'd face it together. We were a family, and no lawsuit would break us. The legal battle was grueling, a reminder of how fragile our progress was. Depositions, documents, meetings with Rachel, they drained us. But they also brought us closer. Claire was at every meeting, taking notes, asking questions. Her determination a mirror of my own. Ethan started sketching again, his drawings darker now, full of sharp lines and shadows. But they were beautiful, a way of processing the fight. I wrote too, pouring my fear and anger into stories, finding strength in the act of creation. One night, Claire read one of my drafts, her eyes wide. Mom, this is good, she said. You should publish it. I laughed, brushing it off. But her belief in me lingered, a spark I hadn't felt in years. As the lawsuit dragged on, Claire opened up about Derek's manipulation, how he'd preyed on her ambition, her insecurities. He made me feel like I was nothing without him, she said, her voice small. I believed him, and I turned it on you. Her confession broke something in me, not in a bad way, but in a way that let light in. I hugged her, the first real hug in months, and felt her tremble. You're not nothing, I said. You're my daughter, and you're enough. Ethan joined us, his arms around us both. And for a moment, the lawsuit, the past, the pine, it all faded. We were us again, imperfect but together. By spring, Rachel had good news. Derek's case was weakening, his evidence thin. We settled out of court, a small payout that stung but didn't break us. Claire covered it, her face set with resolve. This is my debt, she said. Let me pay it. I nodded, proud of her, and we moved on. The lawsuit was over, but its shadow lingered, a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. Yet it had also shown us our strength, as individuals and as a family. We weren't just surviving, we're fighting, and we were winning. Spring brought a sense of renewal, as if the world was mirroring our slow climb back to each other. The apartment was filled with life now, Ethan's paintings on the walls, my books stacked on every surface, Claire's laughter weaving through our evenings. She'd become a fixture, not just a visitor. And though the scars of her betrayal remained, they were fading, softened by her efforts to make amends. Ethan was thriving, his art school applications accepted, his future bright with possibility. I was proud of him, of us, of the family we were rebuilding from the ashes of our past. My writing was becoming more than a hobby. Dr. Ellis encouraged me to submit a story to a local literary magazine. And to my shock, it was accepted. The day I saw my name in print, I cried. Not just for the achievement, but for the woman I'd become, one who could create, who could dream again. Claire and Ethan celebrated with me, throwing an impromptu party in the apartment, complete with cheap wine and Ethan's attempt at cupcakes. Claire raised a glass, her eyes shining. "To Mom," she said. "The strongest person I know." I laughed, embarrassed, but her words settled in my heart. A balm for the wounds she'd once inflicted. Claire's own journey was unfolding. She'd started volunteering at a community center, teaching marketing skills to small business owners. It was a far cry from her high-flying corporate life, but she seemed lighter, more herself. She talked about it one night, her voice filled with a quiet pride. "I'm helping people build something real," she said, not tearing it down. I saw the change in her, the way she listened now, the way she cared. Ethan noticed too, sketching her portrait one evening, capturing the softness in her eyes. When he showed it to her, she cried, hugging him tightly. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. He hugged her back, his silence saying more than words could. But healing wasn't linear. There were moments when doubt crept in, when I'd remember Claire's words useless. Useless. Useless, and feel the sting anew. Ethan had his own struggles, moments when he'd withdraw, his sketches turning dark again. Claire sensed it, and one day, she suggested a family project, a mural for the community center, something we could create together. I was skeptical, but Ethan lit up, and I couldn't say no. We spent weeks planning it, sketching ideas, arguing over colors. Claire was patient, letting Ethan lead, and I saw her defer to him, giving him the space she'd once taken. The mural became our catharsis. We painted it on a sunny Saturday, the community center buzzing with volunteers. Ethan's design was bold, swirling colors, a tree reaching toward the sky, symbolizing growth, resilience. Claire and I followed his lead, our brushes moving in tandem, laughter mixing with the smell of paint. Passers-by stopped to watch, some joining in, and by the end of the day, the wall was alive, a testament to what we could build together. Ethan stood back, his hands streaked with paint, and grinned. "We did this," he said. Claire hugged him, then me, and I felt the weight of the past lift. Just a little. That night, we sat in the apartment, exhausted but happy. Claire pulled out the photo album, flipping to a picture of us in the old house, painting the porch years ago. "We're still us," she said, her voice soft. "Different, but us." I nodded, my throat tight. The house was gone, but we'd carried its heart with us, in the memories, in the love we were rebuilding. I wrote about it later, my journal filling with words of hope, of redemption. I wasn't just Evelyn, the mother who'd been called useless. I was Evelyn, the writer, the fighter, the woman who'd found her way back to her family. Claire started talking about the future, not with the greed of before, but with a cautious optimism. She wanted to start a small business, something local, something that mattered. She asked for my advice, and I gave it, feeling the shift in our dynamic, no longer mother and daughter at odds, but partners, equals. Ethan chimed in, suggesting designs for her logo. And I saw the spark of their old bond, the one that had carried them through childhood. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I clung to it. As spring turned to summer, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The lawsuit was behind us, the house a memory we'd made peace with. Claire was proving herself, not just to us, but to herself. Ethan was soaring, his art a bridge to his future. And I was writing. My story's a map of where I'd been and where I was going. We were a family, not the one we'd been, but one we'd chosen to become, forged in pain and redemption, held together by love. Summer stretched long and warm, the days filled with a rhythm that felt almost normal. The apartment was our home now, its walls alive with Ethan's art and the echoes of our laughter. Claire was a constant presence, her efforts to rebuild trust no longer tentative but bold, deliberate. She'd show up with plans: picnics, movie nights, even a day trip to the coast stand, though Ethan and I were cautious. We let her in, bit by bit. The mural had changed something in us, a shared creation that reminded us we could still build together, despite the cracks in our past. My writing was blossoming, each story a step toward understanding myself. The literary magazine published another piece, this one about a family finding their way back after betrayal. Readers wrote to me, sharing their own stories of loss and redemption, and I felt connected to something bigger. Dr. Ellis suggested I compile my stories into a collection, maybe a book. The idea scared me, but it also thrilled me. A dream I'd never dared to dream. Ethan and Claire were my biggest cheerleaders. Ethan sketching covers for my imaginary book, Claire researching publishers. Their support was a gift, one I hadn't expected. Claire's transformation was undeniable now. Her new job at the community center had become a passion, and she was good at it, helping small businesses thrive with a warmth I hadn't seen in years. She talked about her plans openly, no longer hiding behind ambition or secrets. One evening, she brought over a business plan, asking for my input. "I want to start a consultancy," she said, her eyes bright. "Something local, helping people like the ones at the center. I think I can do it, Mom." I read her plan, impressed by its detail, its heart. "You can," I said, and meant it. She hugged me, her arms tight, and I felt the daughter I'd lost coming back to me. Ethan was finding his own path. His art school acceptance came with a scholarship, thanks in part to Claire's contribution. He was nervous but excited, talking about his classes, his dreams of showing his work in bigger galleries. I saw Tom in him, the quiet determination, the heart that poured into everything he created. Claire noticed it too, and one night, she brought over a photo of Tom, one I'd never seen, from a fishing trip they'd taken when she was 10. "I found it in my old things," she said, handing it to Ethan. He stared at it, his eyes misty, and I knew it was her way of honoring their father, of keeping him with us. The past still lingered, though, in quiet moments when I'd catch myself wondering if Claire's change was permanent. I wrote about it in my journal, wrestling with the fear that she could hurt us again. But I also wrote about her actions, her apologies, her sacrifices, the way she showed up. Ethan had his own doubts, but he was trying, inviting Claire to his art shows, sharing his sketches. One day, he showed me a painting of the three of us, standing on the old house's porch, the colors vibrant but soft, like a memory softened by time. "It's how I see us now," he said. "Not perfect, but together. I hugged him, my heart full. Claire suggested a family trip, something we hadn't done since Tom died. She proposed a weekend in the mountains, a cabin where we could hike, talk, be together. I was hesitant, the idea stirring memories of happier times. But Ethan was eager, and I couldn't say no. The trip was simple but profound: long walks, campfire stories, Claire teaching Ethan to fish, just like Tom had taught her. We laughed more than we had in years. And though the pain of the past was there, it was quieter, overshadowed by the present. On the last night, Claire looked at me across the fire, her face lit by the flames. "I love you, Mom," she said. "I'll never stop trying to deserve you." I nodded, tears in my eyes, and said, "I love you too." Back home, I started working on my book, pouring everything into it: pain, the betrayal, the redemption. Claire and Ethan read drafts, offering feedback, their voices blending with mine. It was our story, in a way, a testament to what we'd survived. The literary magazine offered to host a reading, and I agreed, nervous but ready. The night of the reading, Claire and Ethan sat in the front row, their faces proud. I read a story about a mother who sold her house to save her family. My voice steady, my heart open. The applause was warm, but it was their smiles that mattered most. As summer faded, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Claire was still proving herself, but I believed in her now. Ethan was soaring, his art a bridge to his future. And I was writing, my story's a map of our journey. We were a family, not the one we'd been, but one we'd fought for, one we'd chosen. The house was gone, but we'd built something stronger: trust, love, redemption. Fall returned, bringing with it a crispness that mirrored the clarity I felt in our lives. The apartment was home, its walls a canvas for Ethan's art, my stories, our shared laughter. Claire was no longer a guest, but a part of us, her presence steady, her efforts unwavering. She'd started her consultancy, small but growing, and I saw the pride in her eyes when she talked about her clients, the people she was helping. Ethan was deep in his first semester at art school, his days filled with classes and late-night sketching sessions. I was writing, my book taking shape, each chapter a piece of our story, our survival. The reading at the literary magazine had sparked something in me, a belief that my words could matter. I sent my manuscript to a small press, not expecting much, but they called a month later, offering to publish it. I was stunned, my hands shaking as I told Claire and Ethan. They threw another party, this one bigger, with Linda and my book club friends joining in. Claire gave a toast, her voice strong, to Mom, who showed us what strength looks like. Ethan raised his glass, his grin wide, and I felt their love wrap around me, a shield against the past. Claire's redemption was complete in the small moments: the way she'd call to check on Ethan, the way she'd sit with me, listening to my stories. But it was also in the big ones. She'd paid off the last of the lawsuit settlement, refusing my help, and started a fund for Ethan's art supplies, a quiet way of supporting his dreams. Ethan was flourishing, his paintings gaining attention. One even sold at a local gallery. He dedicated it to me, a vibrant piece of the old house's porch, with 3 figures standing together. "It's us," he said, and I saw the love in his brushstrokes, the hope in his colors. The past wasn't gone, but it was softer now, a shadow we could live with. I still heard Claire's words useless. Useless. Useless in quiet moments. But they no longer defined me. I was Evelyn Carter. Mother. Writer. Survivor. I'd sold the house not out of spite, but out of necessity. To protect what mattered most. Claire had called me useless 3 times. But she'd also called me Mom 1,000 times since. Each one a step toward healing. Ethan had found his voice. His art a testament to his resilience. We were a family. Not perfect, but ours. One crisp October evening, we returned to the old house, invited by Sarah and James for their baby's first birthday. The house was alive, filled with laughter, new memories. Claire held the baby, her smile soft, and Ethan sketched the scene, his pencil capturing the joy. I stood on the porch, looking out at the street where we'd built our lives. Claire joined me, her hand finding mine. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said. "You didn't give up on me, even when I deserved it." I squeezed her hand, tears in my eyes. "You're my daughter," I said. "I'll never give up on you." The book was published in the spring. A small release but mine. The dedication read, "To Claire and Ethan. My heart. My home." They were there at the launch, cheering as I signed copies, their faces bright with pride. Linda was there too, her laughter filling the room. And Rachel, who'd become a friend, toasted to our victory. The house was gone, but we'd built something better, a family forged in pain, redeemed by love. I looked at Claire, at Ethan, and knew we'd made it. We weren't just survivors who were creators of art, of stories, of a future we'd chosen together. As I stood on the stage, reading from my book, I felt Tom's presence, his quiet strength in every word. I'd lost so much: the house, my trust, pieces of my heart, but I'd gained more. Claire's betrayal had broken us, but it had also shown us our strength. Ethan's art, my words, Claire's redemption, they were our legacy, more enduring than any house. We were a family, not defined by what we'd lost, but by what we'd built. And as I looked out at them, my daughter and son, I knew we'd keep building. One day, one story, one love at a time.